Listen, I owe you all a beer. So when you come to Kelowna is in British Columbia is one of the most fabulous places on the planet. We're 1,200 feet above sea level. We're in the high desert. There is 130 wineries and vineyards around within 50 miles of my home. So come on by.
Yeah, I guess Zoom hasn't mastered the virtual beer yet.
Okay, we'll get there. Thank you. But I deeply appreciate all of your patience and your guidance there.
No
I
problem.
got a little warm doing all of that, so it'll cool off. But the switch I made, got after our conversations and a little bit of this lovely research that I get to do for my client load. I'm very busy. We've got lots of conferences on the go. As a human capital specialist in my enterprise, the one thing I get to view all the time is our humanity. And I say to the folks I'm privileged to deal with, the one thing that I can begin with in our relationship is I will always come with the truth. And I appreciate truth is relative, but my truth I have been able to validate now for over 4 decades. It works for me. I understand it. I've positioned myself in the universe as a consequence of it. And some of the truths is that we're the only mammal on the planet that functions from choice and not from instinct. We're the only mammal on the planet that functions from choice and not from instinct. So every feeling we have, every thought we have, every behavior we demonstrate is rooted in a choice. There's something behind it. There's something driving the choice. There's all manner of psychologies come into it for background. But the fact of the matter remains, we get the opportunity before we do anything that we're going to make a choice. Now, I was raised a Presbyterian. I went to a Jesuit university and survived them both. So growing up on a farm in Scotland, my wife grew up on a farm in Manitoba, Canada. We're farmers at heart. We're multiple degreed, but the basics of who we are, we're still farmers. And as a consequence of that understanding, I've been able to integrate that into my practice about the truth of the physics of it. For every action, you get a reaction. Every cause has an effect. And I lovingly tell my clients and my students, if you want potatoes, don't bloody well plant peas. If you plant peas, you're going to get peas. And that's the way that the lens I look through when I'm looking at life. If I want a particular outcome, a particular reaction, I should be very clear about the action I'm taking to get that reaction. And if I'm not, I should be able to make adjustments on the fly very quickly and achieve different results as a consequence of it. So as I move into the heart, and again, this is where the ethics came so close to me, Garrett, and I deeply appreciate you bringing it back into real good focus for me, because the heart of ethics, as I see, is not just what we do, but who we're becoming in the process of our doing. Who are we developing ourselves into being? And as we are the only mammal on the planet that functions from choice, our awareness and our development in life is our responsibility. And it's my premise that our business and our life work in direct proportion to the amount of responsibility that we take for it. We are 100% responsible for who we are. That's the wonderful, this magnificent thing that we are as a species. This very young species on the planet. We're one of the youngest species on the planet. And here we are, this young species with so many things ahead of us that we can grow into, and we can't begin to comprehend the magnificence that is ahead of this particular species. When I look back with my students, I teach at UBCO, and I'd say, let's just do a little historical perspective. We go back 100 years, and I give them a challenge as to all of the things that we've developed and seen come true in the past 100 years. And the list is never ending. And I say, okay, well, just think out then for what could occur, possibly occur. What could we imagine what the next 100 years is going to look like? And if I took this one really personally, we have 7 grandchildren. My youngest child is 4, Nicholas, the self-declared king of all things. And I say, with good health care, good clean water, good living, good attitude, there is a distinct possibility that he could live 100 years. And we say, we start to imagine what could he be exposed to? What could he experience? What could he bring to the world within the next 100 years and the cohort that he will be blessed to be a part of? So what if leadership wasn't just about effectiveness, but about the formation of us as an individual, our soul? And this is where, Garrett, when I was giving this some thought and saying, what's the best I think I can do with this opportunity that you've afforded me, here this evening. So, talk about the ethics of individuality. It requires intention, reflection, and moral coherence. So imagine then for a moment if we started to have those conversations around a cohort, just like we were doing prior to you introducing me this evening, if we were talking about what is our intention today. Remember, the past is dead, the future's not yet alive. The only time we have is the present moment. So what am I going to do now in this present moment that sets the foundation for the next moment? And if I keep that going on, then I have to start to develop a lifestyle and a life habit. So it requires intention. Do we look back at it and say, how do I measure the feedback that I'm getting for how I show up in the world? And we're getting feedback all the time. The little conversation that we were having prior to my introduction, where, talk about people being nice and people being good and people being consistent and people being warm-hearted and generous and compassionate. And we get to be able to do that in our communications all the time. I tell my students that 99% of all of the problems that we've got are communications issues. This is where the greatest source of learning is how we communicate. How do we choose to communicate? How do we choose to behave on the information that we're getting? How do we choose to respond to it? And how do we then act so that what we're creating in the relationships that we're building, in the networks that we're building, we bring that to it. So as part of this individually, the ethics of individuality, and the ethics of identity, Kwame's book of 20 years ago, was how do we choose to behave with the identity that we're giving ourselves. I was having a conversation with someone today who's the president and CEO of a very large company in North America. Been one of my clients for 10 years. We were doing a catch up today and we were talking about who he identifies himself as. He's the president and CEO of the enterprise. That's his job. That's what he does to pay the rent. But who is he? Who is the identity behind the position that he's holding, and how does he communicate and correspond with that person? So he started to say, well, I feel I'm generous. Okay, how does that look like in your world? What form does your generosity take to validate it in the proposition that you're bringing? He said, when he went and he's charitable and he's with the school kids and he behaves all of that way. I said, what else goes on? He said, well, I'm faithful. I said, what does that mean? Well, I said, faithful to who? He said, well, I'm faithful to my wife. I said, how does that show up? But in a couple of minutes of that, I said, what else are you faithful to? I'm faithful to the organization that taught me, and I'm faithful to my school, and I want to support that. So how does that show up? So we're able then, when we understand the ethics of individuality and identity, we are declaring to the universe who we are. And then we get to show up and validate the proposition that we're making. So it's not a self-expression, it's self-authorship. We're authoring to the universe who we are, and by our behavior, by our language, by how we show up, by how we contribute to the world in this incredible opportunity that we've only got for a very short period of time. So individuality is not indulgent, it's ethical. Again, a lot of people can look around it and say, yeah, they're very indulgent in their individuality, but that's how the universe treats them back. And we look at it and you say, hold on, how do I want to be treated? As I said prior to an introduction, the phrase I've always used for decades, that I and I alone am 100% responsible for training everyone that knows me how to treat me. And as I say, there's certain behaviors I accept and endorse. There's certain ones that I don't and I dismiss, and I move them out of my world because I don't need them in that. I don't. I do it with compassion. I do it with loving care. But I'm only going to draw into my universe the things that support me and endorse and help me with what I'm doing and how I choose to live, and choose to operate the values that I come from. And that's a very important part of what are our core operational values. I'll deal with that before I move on. We'll all agree that we all operate from a set of core values. Here's the problem. 97% of the population don't know what theirs are because they haven't done the work to establish what their personal operational core values are. And my attitude is this: if you haven't done the work to get your core values determined yet, borrow someone else's. It's okay to borrow someone else's, try them on, see how it feels, get the feedback, and then make the appropriate adjustments so that you're styling yourself in exactly the way that you want to show up and be perceived in the world. Okay? So the identity that we take on as a consequence of that is not a costume, it's a construction. We're building ourselves all the time. And as I said earlier when we started, I'm 74 years old, so I'm not making 30-year plans. And because we grew up on farms, we're not concerned too much of the timing. That's just the man-made construct. But in seasons, I look at it and you say, I'm in the fall of my career. This is where I am right now. I'm not doing spring things in this season of my experience. I'm doing things that complement the season of my experience right now so that I'm in harmony with it and preparing for the next season that's coming. So this is then me taking that. How do I identify what myself as an individual, and then what ethics and practices do I choose to bring forward into the experience that I'm having? I get the feedback, I make the adjustments, move on. That's just what life really starts to look like. So back to the full spectrum leadership bridge. The individuality is full spectrum leadership. This is where it gets to be fun for me. FSL invites leaders in all that we do to develop posture, not persona. And we're going through this right now in North America, where we see the personas are really moving and gaining notoriety, but it's not sustainable because we know, as a consequence of this understanding, that everything in life is temporary. Everything in life is temporary. Folks, let me repeat for emphasis. Everything in life is temporary. And where we get most problems is when we try to take something that's inherently temporary and try and make it permanent. Permanence is not supposed to be, it's supposed to be temporary. You imagine how boring life would be if things were permanent? It would be awful. So when we understand the temporary nature of everything, then can be afford then to be a little gentle, a little more compassionate with ourselves, and a little more appreciative of this magnificent opportunity that we have. And I was saying, Garrett, to my client today, reminding him of something that we talked about many times. And his name's Chuck. And I said, Chuck, there are approximately 8.4 billion people walking the face of this earth right now. And of all of that 8.4 billion, there is not another one exactly like you. And of all of the tens of billions that have been here before, there's never been another one exactly like you. And all of the hundreds of billions yet to come, there never will be another one exactly like you. As you sit there, every one of you today, you are a unique expression of life. Yet how many of us treat ourselves as if we were a genetic accident? Even worse, how many of us treat other people as if they were a genetic accident when we are absolutely unique specimen miracles of this thing called living? And the understanding of that and the depth of that we can take there is never ending because it truly is a miracle that we're here. Here we are. I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia. You guys are spread all over the world. We're not connected by wires. We've got all of this technology that we can go in real time to talk about subject. We've got pictures up on the screen. We've got voice going. We can hear. We can do all of this magnificent stuff. And we think, hold on just a second. This is truly wonderful. And if we're not going to celebrate that in every day that we get to do it, I go and say, yeah, maybe we should take another visit, maybe give ourselves a little shake and remind ourselves what the truth of it really is. And that's just where as I said, this is about, developing posture, not persona. And the ethical decision making we bring to it is we get to ask ourselves, and I do often, where is my compass set? Where am I aiming for? How do I validate that? How do I move positively towards it? What feedback am I getting? How do I make the adjustments? And how happy am I with the progress that I'm making? Because this is where it becomes so incredibly personal. As you know, guys, you've seen it on the screen. The name of my company is Full Spectrum Leadership. The tagline to my company is actually what we do. The tagline is this: advancing the practice of personal responsibility. Because as I said earlier, it's my premise that our business, like our life, works in direct proportion to the amount of responsibility that we take for it. And the emotional intelligence that comes from that awareness becomes profound. And it's part of the full spectrum leadership bridge in understanding, can you stay in the frame without discomfort? having a high degree of EQ rather, again, IQ is important, but in this new world, if we're going to traverse this experience that we're having, EQ is going to become very dominant. And we should be supportive of people who are struggling with it. How do we help them? How do we help ourselves? What study do we need to make? How can I adjust to it? How can I practice it? How can I try it on? And this is where, as Darwin said, the creature that survives the most is the one that's adaptable. And this is where we evolve without eroding ourselves and giving up who we are, being adaptable to the conditions and circumstances that we've created and endorsed in the world, in our life. And we're just breaking up at school right now, and I was telling my students the other day before they go off for summer break, is what did they then need to learn about their own adaptability through this summer season, so that they come back in the fall with absolutely clear the awareness of the issues becomes exceptionally important. Having a high EQ is exceptional, or advancing your EQ is exceptionally important, but also realizing that it's our ability to adapt. And as I pointed out to them, if we did not have that, as Darwin, clearly said, we'd be food. Right? Because we have no natural resources. We're saying we've got imagination. If we've got imagination, how can we use it for our benefit and the benefit of everybody else? And there's a few of the comments that we were having prior to us launching here this evening is that there's a lot of crap out there going on in the world, a lot of it. And there always was and there always will be. But when we look at our universe, the world that we individually live in, it's nowhere near as big as as the world. It's not. Our individual worlds are actually quite small. And how do we look after them? How do we look after the people in them? Bring our own ethical understanding and behavior to that proposition, and then moving in the world to help from there, moving on from there. So the soul making is a leadership issue. And this is where, when I was first introduced to deeply into the subject of understanding ethics way over 20 years ago with Kwame, and the appreciation that it allowed in me, that I was well practiced in my career, we were doing all the right things, but I felt at that time I was a little empty. And this is where I was introduced to it by really understanding that the development of my soul was incredibly personal. And it was my job to make it the best I could possibly be. So soul making is the ethical crafting of character. And we said, okay, if we can help people in all that we do really understand the power of their own character, help them develop that, advance that, how do we give them feedback? How do we make the adjustments? How do we, with loving compassion, always be addressing the communications of it? And then really integrating that whole experience of taking on the job of creating, developing, and enhancing our own soul. And again, I've been through the process many, many times. Everyone has an interpretation of what they think soul is, but in the agreement that we've all got one. Yeah, I haven't met anyone that didn't have one. And saying, okay, how is it serving you? How are you developing it? How are you taking care of it? So it's the leadership that flows from this integration that makes soul making so incredibly fun. What are we integrating into it with the work we do, the study we get to do? And this is where it became important, because we're the only mammal on the planet that's designed to learn until the day we die. We're the only mammal on the planet that's designed to learn until the day we die. And if we have time later on, I'll give you a fabulous expression of what that meant for someone that was incredibly close to me. So leadership isn't about doing things right. It's about, becoming someone that's worth following, because we're setting a good example. People want to be around us. As I was chatting with the lady earlier, who's in our network? Why are they there? What are they getting out of it? What are they contributing to it? What's the deal that we're making to support each other? Because I'm a non-negotiable supporter of people who are in my network. Because I want to have a relationship with people that we're doing business with, we're spending money with, we show up with, we attend things together. That is what one of for me as an individual, one of the lovely blankets of living that we get to wrap around our shoulders, that's going to keep us safe and warm. And it's important then, in the practice then, who are we becoming? Who are we growing into be, as we're the only mammal on the planet that's designed to learn until the day we die? But I'm going to put a question out there. You don't have to come on line to answer it. But towards when I start to wrap up, someone can give me the answer. The answer to this question is just one word. So here's the question. What is the only evidence of life? What is the only evidence of life? So write down what you think your answer is, and we'll open up when we come back off after the presentation, and we'll talk about that because this is a really good one and it's an interesting one to play. So, identity versus integrity. Are you building a brand or are you building a soul? And I get because many of us are business people, our business, our strategies are all very important to us. But ultimately, what is behind all of that? What does it rest on? So are we building a brand or are we building a soul? Because souls deepen. And this is the value of the work that I am privileged to do and the people I am privileged to spend time with, right? Because we understood that our integrity in this, and this is where the ethical piece comes in so incredibly importantly, integrity is an accessory. It isn't an accessory, it's an architecture. It was part of us, it's part of our character, it's part of how we show up to be, it's part of what we demonstrate, it's part of what we encourage, it's part of what we promote. And this is by taking this thing so incredibly personally, advancing the practice of personal responsibility when we make it our own journal and follow our own manual. Because we pretty much got, if everyone was driving a car in the glove compartment, you've got a manual for the car. This is the assembly of what the manual is for who I am as Peter Comrie and who we all are as individuals. And running it our own manual so we know if we run into an issue, we've written it down somewhere. We've got it in the manual. How do I make the adjustments? What do I have to do? What tools do I have to bring to the technology to make sure that it's in good order and it's running well? And this is the daily work that we're privileged to do as a consequence of being the only mammal on the planet that's designed to learn until the day we die. And one of the greatest choices that we make is the choice just simply to be here. What a miracle that is. And the gratitude that we should be expressing just in life as a consequence of that is profound. And I'll deal with the gratitude thing very shortly. So the 5 FSL pillars that we're revisiting as a consequence of this conversation. 1, ethical decision making. Autonomy with accountability. Imagine then if everybody knew that. To be accountable, but to be autonomous. We don't have to, it's not a big loud thing. We just take our accountability for the living experience very, very personally. Emotional intelligence, self and service to others. My life purpose is service. My name is Peter Murray Comrie, and I'm a healthy, open, courageous, and worthy man forever. That's my value proposition. That's my life contract. And I believe that everyone should have a contract for living. And this is one of the things, hopefully, that in the Free Thinkers Institute that you would endorse and give folks the opportunity to figure out what their life contract is, what's their deal, what's their value proposition, so they get that locked down, put it in the foundational set of who we are, and move on in the world from that place. Adaptability, self-evolution without self-loss. Right? We're unique specimens, we're absolute pieces of miracle to be able to evolve who we are because we've chosen to be here in the most magnificent of ways. We lose nothing. We're always gaining all the time. And that's that adaptability piece. We've got stuff going on our planet. It's not going to, but most of it's not going to affect us in any way, shape, or form. But look at the amount of energy that gets vacuumed up, even considering it, or worrying about it, or reflecting on it, or talking about it. I had my students do a survey on the amount of screen time the average Canadian uses, and when they did the research, it took them 4 months to do it. It was shocking. The amount of this incredible thing called our life that is frittered away in screen time, doom scrolling, and all of the stuff that serves no valuable purpose to our living experience at all. The other, pillar is collaboration, being able to talk to each other. And why I was so excited to come and chat with you this evening is individuality expressed in community. And this is where, when Garrett introduced the Free Thinkers Institute to me, and I looked it up and did a little bit of research on it, I thought, what a great thing you guys have got going here. That you come together, 20 odd of us, and every Tuesday, I'm sure it's bigger. But what an opportunity to express your individuality in a community where it's absolutely acceptable, and everybody's out looking and caring for each other. And then the last one is visionary thinking, becoming the future you wish to lead. I know how I want to lead myself and the people that I am responsible to. So my view has always been this: I am responsible for myself, and I'm responsible to others. But can I be responsible to others if I'm being irresponsible for myself? No. So it's that ethical proposition. I'm responsible to others, but I will always be responsible for myself to make sure that that is always in harmony. And it's the pillars that we built this company on and this enterprise on, and we share warmly with everyone that we get the opportunity to do it with. And this is, and this is just an expression of it. It's absolutely delightful. So the leadership equation, thought plus intention plus ethics equals creative power. There's the formula, right? Our thoughts, what's going on in our mind, what intentions do we have with it, what's our ethical proposition for moving forward, and we have way more creativity than we can possibly imagine. It's a magical formula, and it will never, ever let us down because we don't manage people, we're harmonizing energy. And if any of you have studied any of David Hawkins at all, you know full well that this is just an energetic proposition. And as Einstein said, and I'm not to argue with Albert, like energy attracts like energy. If we show up in the space from that place, guess what we're attracting? This very same type of energy that we're emitting. That's the harmony that brings into it. Because we don't control outcomes, we're controlling possibilities. And we have no idea the amount of possibilities that we unfold for ourselves when we organize ourselves around these principles, techniques, and technologies. It's a pretty magnificent way to look at it. So, where is your leadership? Where is your leadership shaped more by identity, performance than soul practice? That's the important part. What part of your individuality have you left unclaimed? And this is where we do that self-investigation thing to say, okay, have I left anything on the table? Am I not addressing something? Is there something I'm avoiding? So let's just take, I just need to take a little breather myself right now. Take 30 seconds, okay? Take about 30 seconds. Where is your leadership shaped more by your identity performance than by your soul practice? Where are you? Is it persona? What is it? Then you get and take a little bit of look at it yourself. What part of your individuality are you leaving unclaimed? Okay, so here's my closing charge. This is not the area of louder voices. We don't need louder voices right now. This is an area, an era of grounded presence. What we need right now are people who are very grounded, very centered, very clear on who they are, understanding that everything in life is temporary, taking personal responsibility for the entire life experience, no excuses, being very stable and bringing the energy of that stability to our universe and our world right now. At a time where, in my lifetime of 74 years, I'm sensing this is the time that we really need it. And I'm saying I'm super happy and super glad to be around right now. So what do we need? Leadership practice the art of soul making. First for ourselves, because we can't give away what we don't own. Being able to build on our own soul building. Who are we developing as our personalities? Who are we developing as our individuality? What ethics are we bringing to the conversation? How do we show up? What energy are we emitting? Because that's the energy that we're inviting back on us. And we want leaders who exchange performance for purpose. I know my life purpose is service. That's why I'm here. I was raised in a service environment. I've been in the service business for 47 years. I'm not going anywhere. My life purpose is service. I know where it is. And the advantages of knowing what my purpose is keeps me very grounded and very stable. And able then to take on some of the other traumas that I'm witnessing in people around me and I see going on in the world and bring a degree of steadiness and a degree of loving compassion to all of that we're making up. And we can, and guys, and I deeply appreciate the opportunity that I have with you right now. We could take this conversation over multiples of days and still not really scratch the surface on it. We need leaders who shape their souls as earnestly as they shape their strategies. Imagine that for a moment. If we were shaping our souls as earnestly as we shape our strategies. It's an interesting invitation that we have to consider as a consequence of what Garrett has unleashed on you here. Like I said, ultimately, this is truly the architecture of what we at Full Spectrum Leadership are. This is how this is our building blocks. This is the tools that we use. This is the craft that we practice. And say we bring it out every day. And I know full well we make a significant difference in our little corner of the universe. And that's all we need to be concerned about. Making a little difference in our individual corner of the universe and then encouraging other people with love and compassion to be able to bring that forward for themselves. Thank you. By the way, the 14th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart said that the greatest prayer that I have ever prayed is thank you. And I really appreciate and thank you for taking the time on your evening to come and spend with me. And Garrett, bounce it back to you and we'll open it up for some fun questions.
Thank you, Peter, so much. And what a great presentation. I want to kind of open up the Q&A portion by saying feel free to raise your hand when you have questions and questions or comments, and try to limit to one question or comment at a time and limit the length to less than 2 or 3 minutes. And if you want to respond to what someone just said, you can just speak up after they finish talking for less than 20 seconds, ideally. So that way we can have conversation back and forth about each topic that's brought up. And then once that topic dies down, we'll go to the next hand. So that's kind of how we do the Q&A portion. Peter, if you want to stop screen sharing, then you'll be able to see
I'm
everybody
just
again.
trying to figure out how to do
I'll
that.
do it for you. Just one
Okay,
second.
you're a sport. Thank you.
There we go. All right. So anyone have comments or questions? I'm curious what people thought was the answer to the
What is the only evidence of life?
yes, the only evidence of life.
Okay.
Have an
Anybody want
answer
to
to
jump
that?
out and give a go?
I have my guesses, but I already wrote them down, so I want to hear what other people have to say.
Absolutely. And while you're doing that, by all means, guys, don't be shy. There isn't anything I won't chat about that. So unbuckle. This is the fun component for me in the evening. The other one was fun, but I really enjoyed this one.
I did a little research because Peter, you were talking about sort of people's screen time and doom scrolling and stuff. So I was curious about how much time people spend on media. And I started from the 1960s, but then I said, oh, this is a trend. I want to go all the way back. Starting in the 1900s, people spent zero point 0.1 hour a day on media. It went up to 1.5 hours in the 1930s, and then it started going up essentially 1 hour a day every decade up until the 2010s. We now spend the same in the 2020s, 11 to 12 hours a day on media. TV, it's basically streaming, social media, and mobile apps.
Yeah.
11 to 12 hours a day.
Yeah. And we're only awake approximately 15 hours a day.
Yeah, 15, 16.
Right. So you imagine then that 3/4 of our life, 3/4 of this unimaginably valuable thing called our life is we'll never get back.
Yeah,
Right. It drives me crazy. Right.
I'm
So
with you. I'm with you.
yeah. So come on, guys. I know you're not shy because I heard you all before we got started. So while they're considering building up the muscle to ask the question,
Yeah.
let me let me remind you of the magnificence that we have, Garrett, every single day. You get up this morning, it was likely dark when you woke up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have to light a candle and rub two sticks together to get a light. All you did was flip a switch
Yep.
and you light, and you've no idea where the power's coming from,
Yep.
right? So you remember, holy moly, right? This is in the first few seconds of being awake. You put you listen, you get your ear going, you can hear your wife softly snoring. You got the miracle of hearing. Have you any idea the miracle it is just to hear? The function that all has to fire just to be able to hear. Then you get your feet on the ground, you go to the washroom, turn on the tap, cold water that you can safely drink. Puts you in the top 13% of the population on the planet. Do you have safe drinking water? Same tap, turn the other way, warm water. You bathe yourself. Right? You do your toilet thing. You don't have to put it in a bucket and go out in the back 40 and bury it. You
Yep.
just press a button and it's gone.
Yep.
Think about this for a moment. It's the same water,
Yeah.
right? You get to piss in drinking water. Right? Yeah. And this is all in the first few minutes. If you ever want to be like get your day off on a high note of gratitude, there it is.
Yeah.
And then based on all of that magnificent luxury, we go forth into the day.
Yeah. I do want to mention you were talking about whether the FTI has a concept of like what you call the life contract. What we do is in when we have membership, in members we have what we call a personal profile we fill out, which my beautiful name for it is the painting of the spirit. It's like who we are as a human being. And so a lot of people have said they got to know themselves better by filling out
Absolutely.
the blueprint, the painting of the spirit. I should share that with you, Peter. I think you'd appreciate it.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Cool.
No, I would deeply appreciate that because and thank you for sharing that, Gary,
Sure.
because, and that's truly an evidence of how we met. You're
Yeah.
a prolific sharer. Look at the stuff you're doing to create community and network and give it permissive that everyone can just be better.
Yeah. And we can if we want to be, right? But that's why the first intention of the FTI is to be the best version of ourselves, always be polite, seek truth and be fair. It's all about growth and learning. And that was my guess as to the evidence of life is growth and learning. But
Yes.
let me
So
before
you got it. So, no, you got it. That's it.
okay.
The only evidence of life is growth,
Got it.
right? Because so when we know that, so let me tell you, it puts you in the top 1% of the population who know that,
Hmm.
right? So when we know if we then take that, who's responsible for your growth?
Only me,
You,
right? Yeah.
right? So imagine then wasting that 11.3 hours
Right.
and not growing more.
Right, which is what I was doing before, like when I was young, I spent a lot of time watching TV, right? But I learned at least by high school that that's not what I wanted to spend my time on. So I spent a lot less time then, and then eventually I stopped doing pretty much all my media activities except, 5 or 10 minutes a day of checking in with friends on Facebook kind of thing. But yeah, I try not to spend time on that stuff because it's not stuff that though they aren't, it's not time that really adds a lot of value to your life, unless you're having conversations about it. Like I do like to watch like a deep, like interesting movie with people that I can have a conversation with about it afterwards. But I don't like to go to a movie like that without talking about it because it takes away the richness of the movie. It's to have it be just to not have it a shared experience. So
Yeah, well, I have a suggestion then.
yeah,
Like if anyone wants, I am super happy if anybody wants my slideshow. My,
please
I
share
am
with
so
me.
I
Share
will
with me
send
and I
it to
can
you
put it
when we're
up
done.
on our Google Drive and share it on the Discord community, which is where we chat about these events afterwards.
Yeah, and anybody wants to use it for themselves, just rebrand it. I take it. I'm like, if I've given it to you, you do whatever you want with it. I don't hold no claim to it at that point.
Cool. In the painting of the spirit, or the personal profile, we have what we call uncompromisables, which are things that you wouldn't compromise for anyone or anything, which is like kind of the first half of your life contract. And then the
Yeah,
second half we talk about life goals, like things that you want to accomplish, for the world, which may even be things, after you die, like, but that you want to get a start in that direction, and then things that you want to accomplish during your life.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And anything I can do to help build your momentum, you can call on me to. Like, I'm just loving it. Dan, you're back.
Yeah, Dan,
Hi.
go ahead.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, Peter, the work that you've been doing on this call today, is that something that you've been doing most of your life, or were you doing something different and then moved into this, or
Well, Dan, I've been an industrial psychologist for 47 years, and I'm 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 really an introvert. By if you got my classification, I'm quite introverted. But I realized about 20 years ago that presenting I could have some degree of effectiveness presenting in these formats. So I was public speaking, and I had a great mentor out of the US, out of New England, who helped me way back and get over some of that fear way back in the late 70s and early 80s, and encouraged me to be clear on my message, but be clear on it internally, and then I could turn it externally. It's not something I do easily. I always get nervous, but once I'm going, then I'll get on a roll and I'm fine. So, but thank you for the question.
If I could ask you there, you said industrial psychologist. I mean, can you elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. In my degree, I could have picked a number of tracks to go on. I could have picked forensic psychology, clinical psychology, employment psychology. There's a whole bundle of tracks. I didn't want to do therapy, but I was very interested in why people choose to do what they do, always have been. So I thought it would be better off I was in some form of understanding the industrial component. So I work a lot with human resources, senior management, guidance, the senior executives on guidance. Usually if there's a senior people problem, I will get the call.
Okay, okay, that's fantastic. I'm really intrigued. Your background in terms of where you grew up and that type of stuff, if I may ask.
Absolutely. Well, I grew up in the same place as my name, Comrie in Scotland.
I
Right?
tell you, I tell you, those Scottish are really impressive people. I got to tell you.
Yeah. Well, my family go way back. I still own the house I grew up in. My family have owned that property since 1535.
Well,
Uh, the house that's on it right now is the fifth house we have built on that foundation. I've had it rented out to the fourth generation of the same family since 1972. So
So originally from Scotland, and then you made your way to Canada, or was there a
yeah,
stop along the way?
50 years ago, no, I came to Canada. I was offered an opportunity in Canada, and Scotland's a lovely place to be from, Dan. Now, with your accent, you'd be treated like a king over there. They just don't like each other.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I got to tell you, that was wow. That was really something. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Peter.
Very welcome. I'm glad you had a good time, Dan. Thank you for the feedback.
thanks, Jason. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know that your family history is connected to the land for so long. I mean, most people have no idea where they come from. And how far can you go back in your forefathers?
Okay, my family have owned the property since 1535. I did my genealogy when I was in university. I am the sixth Peter from a Peter. So I'm Peter Murray Comrie the seventh. But I've got the track history and birth histories. Although we've had the property since 1535, I have the family history recorded until right back as far as 1460.
Oh. And does that have anything to do with your interest in, like, it sounds like you're interested in industry, because businesses that are into media and catching people's attention, or politics, they want to, like you said, they would just want to, they're not looking to posture themselves. They're more interested in getting people's attention. Is there some sort of connection with this interest in industrialization, or
Well,
are you
no,
trying to like bring that back, or?
no, no. My curiosity always is undying in why people choose to do what they do. I work on the premise of this. If you are what you do when you don't, you aren't. If you are what you do when you don't, you aren't. So I'm always curious why people choose to do what they do, but I'm more interested in who they are behind what they do. That intrigues me. Why people make the choose the life journeys that they do, the work that they do, the vocations that they have, the studies that they do. I'm deeply curious as to the human condition, as to why people pick to do what they do, and it's never waned in me at all.
Yeah, in media, I think people are still trying to figure out who they are. That's
Mhm.
why they're on the media so much, but that can be a problem.
Yeah, potentially. My view, the lens that I look through is nowhere near as complex as I sometimes make it sound. Uh, I, I'm, I'm totally intrigued that here we are in this little blue orb spinning in the middle of space without two strings holding us in place, and I'm thinking, like, it's an absolute miracle. Well, one of the reasons it's impossible for the human mind to comprehend infinity, because we can't imagine something that has no end. because we're used to ends and things on each side, right? But here we are really in an intimate universe. So I am I've been a Hubble fan since day one. I'm a James Webb Space Telescope fan. We've got that new one that's just come up in the south in Chile that just got launched. That observatory, they're going to change our view of the entire world. And and the like we're developing tools that get us to see millions of light years away. Yet here we are in this little wee miracle of a blob that and look what we're doing with it. Right? Like it right it just and from when I was young it just well I had I grew up well, obviously I grew up in the house I still own but so we had a big globe. My grandfather was a coal miner and he bought me a globe when I grew up with my grandfather, not with my parents. So he did a little test with me one day. He put me right up in the globe and he said, "Do you see that little black line there between Scotland and England?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's the border." So we went back a couple of feet and he said, "Can you still see it?" "Yeah, I think so." So we went back about 6 feet. He said, "Can you see it now?" I said, "No, I can't see it anymore." He said, "That's the lesson. Borders don't exist in nature. We've just got this place that's got all these. Remember and there was only like 2 billion people on the face of the earth when I was growing up. Now there's 8.4. Right. So it's what exists in nature. Borders don't exist in nature. Yet here we have made decisions that we've segmented each other off and started beating up people over dirt. Right? Come on, give yourself a shake here. Right? We're not getting any more dirt. Right? So, and all the resources that we've used to build all the stuff we've done, all the electronics, all the mechanisms, all the toys and tools and techniques and technologies, all that stuff was already here. And all the stuff that we're going to need in the future is already here. We're developing it as a way to use it efficiently, effectively for the betterment, hopefully the betterment of our experience here. Huh? So I get in a little bit of a tear with my students on this stuff. Yeah, so it keeps my interest. I don't pay a lot of attention to the medias. If anybody wants to see a program that is super interesting, there's a documentary put out in the United States. It was made in actually Britain, but it was about Edwin Bernays. It's a 4-part series called The Century of the Self. The Century of the Self. Edwin Bernays was the developer of PR, and he was Sigmund Freud's nephew. So he had a bit of an understanding. But PR was the second name they used for it because the name they first adopted for it got such negative feedback. So they named it PR. So if you ever want to see how we got to where we are right now, watch The Century of the Self. It's really interesting. The first name that they used for PR was propaganda.
Yeah, I'll watch for that. I haven't seen that yet.
It's absolutely just Google it. It's got its own. You can just Google it. The Century of the Self. It's easy to get free. You can download it, watch it, but it's absolutely a good investment to find out how we got to where we are. And I still have this insatiable curiosity as to why people make the decisions for themselves the way they do.
Right. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Great. What other questions do people have?
I'm pretty sure I didn't put them to sleep.
No, I don't think you did. I think maybe you left them speechless rather than put them to sleep. So,
Yeah, I'm a legend in my own mind. Come on, guys. You've got me for a while. This is your time. Mix it up with me. If you disagree with me too, you can bring it on. And
yeah, we
we'll
always
be happy.
welcome disagreement as well. So, either way,
Absolutely.
I will say what was I going to say? I love that you recognize the individuality of each person. So that's like where in the FTI we call it, being transparent about our authentic self, which is part of the second intention, which we tie equally with having an open mind to what other people say, because I think it's equally important to be transparent about who you are as well as it is to understand what other people are offering and make sure that you're listening to them with an open mind to focus on that growth that you were mentioning as I think it was growth that was the core element, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's
And the wonderful, thank you for sharing that, Garrett. The wonderful part, uh, as we are the only mammal on the planet that is designed to learn until the day we die, there are many times in every day we get to learn even more. I'll give you a story. A year ago, February, I got a call from a client of mine, and they've been a client of mine on and off for over 30 years, right, way over. I get a call. The dad who retired in 1998 was my original client. I'd fired him like 6 times as a client, and he'd phone me wanting to know something, and I said, you're not a client, right? And I can't hang up, right? Because we could do that. The very next day, FedEx would show up with a check. Said, "Is this enough to get us talking again?" So, but anyway, I
nice.
get a call. I get a call from his son a year ago, February, and he said, "Dad's going to be calling you because he's bugging me for a piece of information that I know you have." So the very next week, his dad called me, and we hadn't talked for a couple of years, and I gave him the information that he needed. I said, "What are you doing today?" He said, "Oh, you'll love this. There's a young couple just moved into the bungalow next door. They just got married. As a wedding present, someone gave them a honking big food mixer, a KitchenAid food mixer. They'll never use it, so they gave it to me. So I'm learning to make bread. It's got a big hook in it." So I said, "I'm on with Chef Google, Baker Google. I'm getting recipes. We're doing the whole thing." He said, "I'm going to make 5 different types of bread today." And you know, Garrett, if you mix dough to make bread, you have to let it rise for a while before you bake it.
Yep.
He was letting it rise, put a nice cover over it, went to lie down to have a nap, never woke up.
Oof. Wow.
Passed away in his sleep. The son phoned me that night, told me what had happened, and he opened a bottle of scotch. I opened a bottle of scotch, and we laughed our arses off for an hour and a half. But this was quintessentially his dad. He was at 94 years old, learning to bake bread.
Wow.
Right. So about 6 weeks, 7 weeks later, we had his celebration of life on Zoom, and there had to
Hmm.
be like 700 people on this call.
Wow.
All old lady friends of his. There was old ladies running out the room to go pee. They were laughing so hard they were going to pee themselves at the stories of him and learning. And it was such a testimony, and it was so incredibly enjoyable. Here he was, 94 years old, and
Wow.
learning to eat bread.
That's great.
Right. What an opportunity. And so the only limitation that any of us have is the limitations that we put upon ourselves.
I agree.
Right? And this is where when I first met you in FTI, I'm thinking, this is why the world's such a great place, because folks like you are around. Right? And
And
give
same
people
about you.
permission to
We have
be
same
themselves.
goals. That's why, I really resonated and felt like you would be a great presenter here because we have very similar goals and wanting to help people achieve their potential. Buckminster Fuller, I think, was also of
Oh,
that mind. So
one of the top 6 minds of the 20th century.
yeah,
Bucky was a great guy. What a contributor.
yeah.
Uh, uh, yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, one of the top 6 great minds of the 20th century. So, guys, so you're getting bored with Garrett and I hanging out here having a pint, or
And anyone have like topics that you want Peter or I to cover? Questions of anything? Ideas towards growth and development?
okay? Well, my dear friend, I think folks are voting by their voting by their vote. So,
Okay. Well, thank you
Everybody,
for coming.
everyone's so shy. I think maybe it's the heat.
Might be.
well, I got the impression at the beginning before we actually started the call, I didn't sense any shyness.
In the social, people weren't shy. Once there's a large group, we may have a lot of introverts here that haven't gotten out of their introversion like we have, Peter. Because I was also an extreme introvert, like my early years in life, so till my mid 20s or so.
Yeah, fun.
Well, thank you, Peter, for coming. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. If there's no other questions, I guess we'll wind up a little bit early. But want to thank you all for coming. Next week we're going to talk about Trump's quote unquote big beautiful bill, and we'll talk about whether it's big and whether it's beautiful or not. And so hope to see some of you there. And Peter, thanks so much for coming again.
You're very welcome, my friend. And as soon as we hang up, I will shoot off that slideshow for you, and you can make it available to anyone that wants it.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Okay, guys, pleasure meeting you. It was absolute fun hanging out with you. Take
All
care.
right. Take care. Bye-bye.